The afternoon Natalie Chen forgot to disconnect a phone call, Owen Bridges learned that sometimes the most important conversations are the ones you were never supposed to hear, and that friendship is just love that hasn't been given permission yet. Owen was 36 years old, a mechanical draftsman who worked for a mid-sized engineering firm that designed HVAC systems for commercial buildings. It was steady work, the kind that paid well and required precision but didn't inspire much conversation at parties. He lived in a second-floor apartment in a converted warehouse building near the river, with tall windows that let in good light and exposed brick walls he'd never bothered to decorate. He'd been divorced for 4 years from a woman named Michelle who'd left him for her personal trainer, which Owen found cliché but also, in a strange way, fitting. Michelle had always wanted more intensity than Owen knew how to provide, and the trainer had apparently specialized in intensity. The split had been clean, and Owen had moved on in the way people do when moving on is more about forgetting than healing. The one constant in his life for the past 8 years had been Natalie. They'd met at a coffee shop when Owen had accidentally taken her order off the pickup counter, realized his mistake halfway to the door, and returned to find her laughing instead of annoyed. She'd said it was fine, that she didn't even like oat milk that much anyway, and they'd ended up sitting together for 2 hours talking about nothing important. After that, they'd just kept talking. They met for lunch once a week, texted constantly, spent weekends hiking or watching bad movies, and operated with the kind of easy companionship that made other people assume they were either siblings or dating. They weren't dating. Owen had thought about it once or twice in the early days, but Natalie had been in a relationship back then, and by the time she was single again, the friendship had solidified into something that felt too valuable to risk. Natalie was a graphic designer who worked freelance from her apartment, which meant her schedule was chaotic and her workspace was covered in sketches, color swatches, and coffee mugs she kept forgetting to wash. She was sharp, funny, and had a way of calling Owen out on his nonsense that no one else bothered with. She also had a habit of forgetting to hang up phone calls, which was how Owen ended up overhearing a conversation that rewired his entire understanding of the previous 8 years. It was a Wednesday afternoon in late November. Owen had called Natalie to ask if she wanted to grab dinner, and she'd picked up sounding distracted. "Hey, yeah, hold on 1 second, she'd said, and then there'd been muffled sounds like she'd set the phone down. Owen waited, assuming she'd come back in a minute. Instead, he heard her voice again, but farther away, talking to someone else. A woman's voice he didn't recognize responded, and Owen realized Natalie must have set the phone down without disconnecting and walked into another room where her friend was. He should have hung up. He knew that. But he didn't, because he heard his own name. The other woman said, "So are you ever going to tell Owen how you feel, or are you just planning to suffer quietly forever?" Owen froze. Natalie's voice came through, quieter now. "I don't know what you're talking about." The other woman laughed. "Natalie, come on. You've been in love with him since the day you met him. Everyone knows it except apparently Owen." There was a long pause. Then Natalie said, "It doesn't matter." The other woman's voice softened. "Why not?" Natalie sighed, and Owen could hear the exhaustion in it. "Because he doesn't see me that way. He never has. We're friends, and that's all we're ever going to be, and I've made my peace with it." The other woman said, "Have you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're torturing yourself." Natalie's voice came back sharper now. "What am I supposed to do, Jenna? Just blow up an 8-year friendship because I caught feelings I shouldn't have? He was married when we met. Then he was divorced and a mess. Then he was dating that woman from his gym. And now he's just fine. And I'm still here, waiting for something that's never going to happen. So yeah, I've made my peace with it because the alternative is losing him completely, and I can't do that." Owen's hand tightened around the phone. His chest felt like someone had reached in and rearranged everything without asking. Jenna said something else, but Owen didn't hear it. He was too busy trying to process the fact that Natalie Chen, the person who knew him better than anyone, who made fun of his coffee order and texted him articles about obscure engineering failures and showed up at his apartment with takeout when he was having a bad week, was in love with him. Had been in love with him for 8 years. He heard footsteps, and then Natalie's voice came through clearer, like she'd walked back into the room. "Sorry, where were we?" Owen's throat was dry. I'm still here," he said. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "Owen?" Natalie said. Her voice had gone tight. "How long have you been on the line?" Owen closed his eyes. "Long enough." Silence. Then quietly, "Oh God," Owen said. "Natalie," but she cut him off. "I have to go," she said, and the line went dead. Owen sat on his couch staring at his phone for 10 minutes. Then he tried calling her back. It went straight to voicemail. He texted her. No response. He tried again an hour later. Still nothing. By evening, he'd sent 4 messages and called 3 times, and Natalie had gone completely dark. He didn't sleep that night. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the conversation in his head, replaying 8 years of moments he'd completely misread. The time Natalie had shown up at his apartment at midnight with ice cream after Michelle left and had stayed until 3 in the morning letting him talk. The way she always texted him first thing in the morning, just a dumb meme or a comment about the weather. The way she'd learned how he took his coffee and never forgot. The way she looked at him sometimes like she was about to say something and then didn't. He'd thought it was just friendship. He'd thought he was reading the room correctly. He'd thought wrong. The next morning, Owen called in sick to work and drove to Natalie's apartment. He stood outside her door for a full minute before knocking. When she finally opened it, she looked exhausted. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she was wearing an oversized sweatshirt and leggings. She didn't smile. "Owen, don't," she said. Owen shook his head. "I need to talk to you." Natalie crossed her arms. "I really don't want to do this." Owen said, "I know, but we're doing it anyway." He stepped inside and Natalie let him, though she didn't look happy about it. She closed the door and leaned against it, not looking at him. Owen stood in the middle of her living room, surrounded by half-finished design projects and the faint smell of coffee and lavender, and said, "Why didn't you tell me?" Natalie's jaw tightened. "Because it wasn't your problem to fix." Owen frowned. "That's not fair." She looked at him then, and her eyes were red like she'd been crying. "What did you want me to say, Owen? Hey, I know we're best friends, but I'm actually in love with you and have been for almost a decade. Hope that doesn't make things weird?" "How does that conversation go?" Owen took a step closer. "I don't know. But it goes better than this." Natalie laughed, but it sounded broken. "Does it? Because from where I'm standing, I just ruined the most important friendship I have because I couldn't keep my mouth shut around Jenna." Owen said, "You didn't ruin anything." Natalie shook her head. "You don't know that." Owen said, "Yeah, I do." She looked at him and he could see her trying to hold it together. "How?" Owen took a breath. "Because I spent all night thinking about the last 8 years, and I realized I've been an idiot." Natalie went still. "What are you talking about?" Owen ran a hand through his hair. "I thought you were just my friend. My best friend, yeah, but just a friend. And I was fine with that because I didn't think I was allowed to want more. But last night when I heard you say you were in love with me, the first thing I felt wasn't surprise. It was relief." Natalie stared at him. "Relief," she repeated. Owen nodded. "Because I've spent 8 years trying not to think about what it would be like if you weren't just my friend. And I told myself it was fine, that I was happy with what we had, but I wasn't. I was just scared." Natalie's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Scared of what?" Owen stepped closer. "Of losing you, of screwing it up, of wanting something I didn't think I deserved." He stopped in front of her, close enough to see the way her breathing had changed. "But I don't want to be scared anymore." Natalie's eyes searched his face. "Owen, what are you saying?" Owen reached out and took her hand. "I'm saying I love you. I don't know when it started, and I don't know why it took me this long to figure it out, but I do. And if there's any chance you still feel the same way, I'm asking you not to make peace with it. I'm asking you to give me a chance." Natalie's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment Owen thought he'd miscalculated everything. Then she stepped forward, closed the distance between them, and kissed him. It was soft, tentative, and tasted faintly of coffee and salt from the tears that were sliding down her cheeks. When they pulled apart, she was smiling. "You're an idiot," she said. Owen laughed. "I know." She wiped her eyes and said, "So what now?" Owen thought about it. "Now we figure it out. Together, like we always do." Natalie nodded. "Okay." She kissed him again, and this time it didn't feel tentative at all. They spent the rest of the day on Natalie's couch talking through 8 years of almost moments and missed signals. Natalie told him about the time she'd almost said something after his divorce, and the time she'd canceled a date because Owen had called saying he needed company. Owen told her about the night after Michelle left, when Natalie had stayed late and he'd almost kissed her but talked himself out of it because he didn't think she'd want that. By evening, they'd ordered takeout and were sitting on the floor surrounded by cartons of Thai food, and Natalie said, "I can't believe this is real." Owen looked at her. "What part?" She smiled. "All of it. You, here. This." Owen leaned over and kissed her forehead. "Get used to it." 6 months later, Owen moved into Natalie's apartment. It was bigger than his, and the light was better, and Natalie had already claimed the second bedroom as her studio. They painted the living room together, a soft gray that Natalie said made the space feel calm, and Owen hung shelves for her ever-growing collection of design books. A year after that, Owen proposed. He did it in the same coffee shop where they'd met, at the same table if he could manage it, which he did by arriving 2 hours early and camping. When Natalie walked in and saw him sitting there with 2 coffees, hers with oat milk even though she still claimed not to like it, she started crying before he even said anything. He got down on one knee anyway, pulled out the ring he'd been carrying for 3 weeks and said, "I know I'm late, but I'm here now. Will you marry me?" Natalie said yes before he'd finished the question. They got married in the spring, in a small ceremony at a botanical garden just outside the city. Jenna was the maid of honor, and during her toast she said, "I'd like to take credit for this, but honestly these two were always going to figure it out eventually. I just helped speed things along by refusing to let Natalie suffer in silence anymore." Everyone laughed, and Natalie threw a napkin at her, and Owen pulled Natalie close and thought that sometimes the best love stories are the ones that take 8 years and a forgotten phone call to get started. 2 years later, they were still in Natalie's apartment, though they'd started looking at houses with backyards and room for Owen's drafting table and Natalie's ever-expanding collection of art supplies. On quiet mornings, they'd sit together with coffee and argue about paint colors or where to put bookshelves, and Owen would think about that overheard conversation and feel grateful for every accident that had led them here. Sometimes careful is just fear with better manners. And sometimes the person you're most afraid to lose is the person you were supposed to be with all along. What would you have done if you overheard your best friend confessing feelings for you they'd been hiding for years? And have you ever realized too late that the person you needed was right there the whole time? Tell me your story in the comments. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.